Hello and welcome to the Small Business Live Forum from the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition. My name is David Dadekian, and I'm a small business owner. I own Eat Drink Rhode Island. And with us this week for the live forum is the Director of the Department of Labor and Training, Matt Weldon. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. I like the jacket.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. It's nice to have you here this week. We have a lot of questions for you, a lot of things from the coalition members, and general questions about the updated unemployment insurance bill. So let's. Do you mind diving right in, or do you have anything you want to start off with introduction wise?
No, just we've talked quite a bit in different forums, and I'm very happy to be here. I think it's good to make myself available for questions, do the best I can to answer them. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. And the good thing is people in Rhode Island, at least, are getting back to work. And so we have very preliminary data that hasn't really been completely tested out yet. But it looks like just the changes that we made in the last week that we've all talked about, and I'm sure I'll get into in just a minute, have benefited, 4,500 people one way or another.
That's great.
Just from 2 days of certification, Sunday and Monday. So that's great. And that means that people are taking advantage of the resources that we put into place, and Rhode Island families can maximize their income as people get back into our economy. I read a couple of articles today about what's happening across the country, and with every other state, that's the 23 states that shut off the federal programs. The amount of money is staggering. And it's not just the money that goes to the people that are collecting. It's money that's put right back into our economy. In Rhode Island, we've seen from time over time, when programs are out and money comes in, we know it gets pushed right through families back into our local economy. That's one of the main reasons why the governor insists that we need to stay connected to that federal money as long as we can. I'm very happy to explain whatever you'd like and take any questions anybody has.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that's key. I think that especially as small business owners, we should remember that most of that money, when a person gets that extra $300, they're putting it back into the local economy. They're hopefully going shopping at small businesses and giving that back into the small businesses. I mean, sure, there's going to be expenditures at big box stores, things like that, and grocery stores that we can't control. But hopefully that $300 a week is really showing itself to local retailers, restaurants, gyms, salons, things of that nature here. So it's an excellent point to make. So let's talk about that how people out there entering or re-entering the workforce get that 300. How do they make sure that they can get a job, still certify for unemployment, and get that bump? Can you explain the formula of how the new bill works for our folks?
Sure. So in the unemployment world prior to the change, people could always work partially or part-time and still collect unemployment, but there are two qualifiers or two things that you have to consider. And the way I like to explain it is you're walking down a hallway with two doors. And so you must open the first door before you get to the second one. So let's talk about that first door. And that is how much money in gross earnings, so total earnings, the claimant had in that week that they're trying to collect. All claimants have what's called a weekly benefit amount, and it's different for everyone. We have a minimum amount, we have a maximum amount, but then everywhere in between, there are different rates. And it's based off of the claimant's earnings in a base period or a series of payroll quarters prior to when they filed. That gets really complicated very quickly, very boring. So I won't spend time on that. But that's why someone's weekly benefit amount may be $300 and somebody else may be $400, and they say, hey, that's not right. We work at the same place. Well, it's based on different periods of time, and maybe they work somewhere prior. It doesn't make a difference. Everybody has a different rate. The previous rule up until May 23rd was that a claimant could work and earn up to $1 less than their benefit rate and still collect. That was the first door. Right. If you made the same amount as your benefit rate or a penny more, you got nothing. So that was the first thing that we dealt with. And the way that we changed that was we increased it from up to 100% or a dollar less than 100% to up to 150% of your benefit rate or $1 less than 150%. And so now what that means is that same person can not only earn whatever their benefit rate is, but also up to 150%. We think that possibly one of the reasons people weren't going back to work is because they were afraid to fall off of unemployment. And what if they went back in an hourly occupation and maybe had just enough hours to not qualify for a payment under the old structure? they didn't get a payment, and now they're afraid they're not going to get back in
Right.
the following week, or let's say their hours drop after 1 week for one reason or another. We wanted to address that. And one thing is, let's raise that limit. And so we raised it to 150%. So that's the first thing. So if you earn up to $1 less than 150%, you can open that first door. You qualify. The second door.
And I just want to interrupt for 1 second. So for people out there that are watching this, trying to understand what that is, basically, if you're collecting unemployment, you know what your dollar amount is that you receive each week. Now take that dollar amount and increase it by 50%. And that now you understand how much you can claim going forward. Question on that, Matt. How does that work with taxes taken out?
So it's the total. Your dollar amount is your dollar amount. It's a gross pay, just like gross pay. So let's just say it's $300. Exclude any federal money. The federal $300 is a bonus or an attachment to your pay. Forget about that for a minute. If it's $300, then that's how much right now before the changes, you could make up to $299, and then you were cut off. Now, because of the change, you can make up to $449 before you're cut off.
Right.
That's the big difference.
All right.
And so that's the first thing. The second piece is more complicated, but it basically goes like this. The previous law said that if you qualified for a payment, we would disregard 20% of your weekly benefit amount. So remember, we're talking about a $300 claimant. In the past, we would say you could make $60 a week and there'll be no impact to your claim at all. After $60, your claim is reduced dollar for dollar by your earnings. So that's where it gets a little bit complicated. It was 20%. For the $300 person, that was $60. The $61st dollar and every dollar after that you earned came off of your claim until you had essentially nothing left. Now we've increased that to be 50% of your weekly benefit amount. So for that $300 person, they can now earn $150 without any impact to their claim. After that 150, we start to reduce. So the one example that we like to give is the $300 claimant because the math works out. For the $300 claimant under the current situation, the new law that took effect on May 23rd, they can earn $449 without being cut off from unemployment. And I'll walk through the math really quick. There is a lot of information on our website, and we're going to keep updating it every day. I think we're going to put, with a lot of legal disclaimers on it, a calculator up so people can try and see what they may qualify for.
That's a great idea. Yeah,
that will probably be up some point this week, and some other things like that. Some tools that employers can use with their employees to try to say, this is what you could do if you come back to work, or if we can take more shifts. But for that $300 person, right now, let's just say that they were making $449 a week. They wouldn't qualify. Before the law changed, they qualify for nothing from unemployment. So $449 is what they got. If they didn't work at all, they got their $300 unemployment benefit and a $300 federal benefit. That's $600. Now, math was never my number one class in school, but 600, I think, is more than 449,
right?
Which may have led to people saying, I'm not going to go back to work. Like, that doesn't work for me. And maybe there are other reasons, but maybe that's why. Under the current situation, when we changed it, that same person that makes $449 can actually get a very small payment from the state, literally $1, because of the way that it works out. They make $449. They get to make $150 before their claim is impacted. You take $150 off. You're left with $299. $300 minus $299 in earnings is $1. Obviously, it was designed that way to keep them connected to the $300. But that $1 comes with a $300 federal ride-on. So now they get $301 in benefits, plus they made $449, so they get $750. Now, some people have told me $750 isn't that much more than $600. But again, using my very basic math skills, it is more. Yeah. And over the course of a month, that's $600.
Exactly.
Which could be a food budget or car payments and insurance and all sorts of things. I would like to have $600 in my family income that I don't have right now. So we think that works. There are other examples. You can play it 1,000 different ways, but it's a way to incentivize people to get back to work.
Yeah. No, it's I think, it's a great way to put it is you can do it 1,000 different ways. There's never going to be a perfect solution for everyone. But this seems to be a good working solution for the time, at least, through September when this $300 federal benefit continues. When we're talking about that, let's look at get a question here from some coalition members talking about people that are already at work that have never left and filed unemployment. Is there anything that can be done for those employees?
So there's a couple of things. Thing one is it's possible that if their employer reduced their hours, they may qualify for a partial unemployment payment. By increasing the earnings allotment, basically you're allowing someone to earn up to 75% of what they were earning prior to when they filed. Right. That allows people to get back in if their hours were cut by as little as 25%. It's going to work differently for everybody, and some people aren't going to want to do that. That's what the governor's been talking about when he said it's like the reverse of WorkShare. WorkShare is a program that is employer-driven and keeps people connected to the employer and unemployment. This is employee-driven, but to help employers. Right. That's one option. The other option is the administration continues to talk about different incentives that you may have read about happening in other states. You know, the challenge with the federal stimulus money is it's pretty prescriptive this time around. Right. And, there's a lot of process around it. And so we meet frequently. In fact, we're meeting again later today to talk about other options. You know, we haven't forgotten about the people that stayed connected. We want to do something if we can. We just have to make sure that we really utilize that money to its full potential.
Understandable. And again, I would hope that, anything that you do come up with will end up going back into the local economy again. Is this based upon that dollar amount, your benefit, or is it considered, full-time, part-time? Is there an hourly wage in there at all, or that's not being considered? Like, I know, for example, someone asked about the Rhode Island Healthy and Safe Families Act considers 35 hours a full-time job. Is that?
So there's really no single definition of full-time, part-time in Rhode Island labor law. And it's treated differently in every possible program. We're not considering full-time, part-time right here. We're considering earnings amounts. So if you remember, unemployment replaces about 50% of your pre-unemployment pay. That's about where most of the country is, 50%. This now increases it allows you to earn more, obviously. And the point is, we don't know how many hours people are working. We can't say it's just for full-time or just for part-time. It's really aimed at hourly workers, but you could work it out in any other way. And right now, from what I'm hearing from employers, they just need to fill shifts and get people back to work, especially in certain industries. And I think that this is going to help.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Like you said, they need to get people back to work. So going back to the certification, the weekly certification, I know you've also started the program back up where the attestation that you are looking for work. If you are working, you hire an employee part-time so that they receive these additional federal benefits. Does that person still have to say that they're looking for further work to be working full-time, or is that, still not part of the program?
Well, the law requires people to be able to work, available for work, and actively seek full-time work. Okay. Now, this is like a bridge program. It's meant to get people back into the workforce full-time. What that means is they could talk to their employer and say, do you have more hours available for me? Can I take on more shifts? If they don't at that moment, that's okay. If they look for other opportunities, that's fine. We're not policing it to hurt people. What we want to do is make sure we're filling jobs and filling shifts, and at the same time getting people, transitioning them back into the economy after having been out for so long. Of course, we're going to take it seriously, and I am auditing claims, and we're beginning this week, and we're making sure people are doing their work search. That's a requirement. And if it's a meaningful work search and they're trying, that's good. We're heading in the right direction. If they're not doing it at all, then we're going to adjudicate that claim, and we're going to basically make them prove what they're doing is in compliance with the law, or we're going to hold their benefits.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Jennifer Ortiz, one of our coalition members, the owner of Executive Cuts, is backstage here, and she's got a question she wanted to ask you about fraud. Jennifer?
Sure. Hi, guys. Matt, you were talking about if an employer wants to try to get their employee back on unemployment. If that employee has some fraud on them, it gets a little more trickier. How long can that process take to get that employee back on unemployment?
If they reach out and get in touch with us, we know that employee had a hold because there was a fraud claim before, we can take it down one day and file the claim the next day. It's really just about getting in touch and making sure that they send an email or call us up. And I know it's frustrating and it's hard to get through. People get through every single day, and I read people's. I can see in the remarks when people get through on a claim, and I've seen people that get through every day with questions. So I would urge them to call up. It's 401-415-6772. Go to our website and look for ways to contact us. You know, we only have a handful of staff that can take those fraud claims down. That's by design. And once we lock a claim as fraudulent, we don't want anybody to be able to go in. Like, my staff won't tell me how to do it. They don't want me playing around in there, and that's probably good. But we don't, somebody can go in and take that down, and then it has to sync up overnight, and then the next day we can get that claim filed.
Just a little more clarification on the 300 versus 449. If somebody is getting the 300 and then they make $100 from their job that week, do they then receive 200 from unemployment and 100 from the employer, or do they still receive the 300 from unemployment?
So think of unemployment, completely separate from their employment. And so what I would say is how much they earn working is going to impact how much they can collect. But if somebody has a $300 weekly benefit amount, and for instance, they earned $100 that week, they'd be able to keep the whole thing without any penalty, because that's under 50% of their weekly benefit amount. They can work and make 100. Now, one of the arguments I've heard was this only allows people to work 10 hours. That's not true. They could probably work like up to 30 hours. For those people that were already working part-time, maybe working 15, 20 hours a week, they may only be able to take on another 10 hours. And that's okay, because again, it's a bridge to get them back to full-time employment. But we were really targeting the 90% of people that weren't working at all. And that's what we're trying to get to.
So if it is that minimal amount, it does not get deducted from the unemployment.
If it's under 50% of their weekly benefit amount, whatever that is. So in that, for a $300 claimant, they get $150 a week that they can earn without any impact of their claim.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, David.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Jen. We had Jen, and she's a self-employed, essentially, a single operator owner, same as myself with Eat Drink Rhode Island. So we were eligible for the PUA benefit, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. Have there been any changes or anything that people, small business owners out there in the world that are eligible for PUA under CARES can see going on right now? Is there anything new?
The biggest change would be when it comes to work search and how that's applied to pandemic claimants. I'm going to focus exclusively on people that own their own business.
Yeah.
Because everyone else on pandemic would have to follow the regular unemployment rules. But if you own your own business, we're not asking people to shut their doors and move away from their business and go get a regular W-2 employment job and become an employee. What we're saying is conduct 3 business development activities that week. I can't tell you, David or Jennifer or anyone else what that means. We have some examples online. We were asked last week by some members of the arts community, what could it mean for us to do business development? And we helped them out a little bit. Basically took their information and helped them format it into a work search log. What it could mean for a realtor or someone else that owns their own business, just get out, network.
Yep.
Put your name out there. Try to get clients. Do whatever you would normally do to grow your business, and that's going to check that box for us. All we're saying is it's time to get yourself back from collecting pandemic unemployment to earning so much that you can't collect. That's what we're working towards.
Right. No, that's excellent help. Thank you. So I've exhausted those questions here. Let's talk about. I think we've. Hey man, we got some Facebook questions. I was doing my next question. What have we got from Facebook for Matt?
We have a question from Martha on Facebook. If someone has a return to work date, do they still have to show that they are looking for work?
Technically, yes, at the moment, because unless that person has been out for less than 12 weeks. If for someone who's been collecting throughout the pandemic and now they have a return to work date, they should still be conducting a work search activity 3 of them a week until they do go back to work, and hopefully they go back sooner. For folks that get laid off or separated and they have a definite return to work date within 12 weeks, they're exempt by Rhode Island law from having to conduct work search activities. That was designed to prevent people that they knew they were going to be out for a short period, they were going back, from getting selected to participate in the different programs that we run, or from having to look for work and then leave the employment that they've been connected to for so long. But for people right now, I'm sorry, if it's been 12 months or 14 months and you haven't gone back yet, you need to start thinking on other opportunities until you do go back.
Do we have any other questions from Facebook on the unemployment part, Ben, or shall I move on to?
Nope, nothing else. Nothing else from Facebook. Jen does have another question though.
Yep, I see that here. Jen's asking, there was an issue with the phone verification system? Has that been addressed, Matt?
I'm not aware of any issues with our systems. They were all working fine this weekend. We certified 59,000 people for a payment between yesterday and Sunday. I'm not aware of any problems. If there was, then we can talk about it and I'll follow up.
All right. And as always, Ben has just put up the phone number and the website to connect. I will say personally, I've had to contact DLT a few times, and it's, yes, there's a wait, understandable, but it's gone smoothly. And then, I can't say enough about how responsive you are, Matt. I appreciate it. It's always it's very much appreciated when someone who is, it's one of those cliches. You work for us, but you've been great at working for us. So thank you very much. Let's move on to other topics here. Because there's a lot more at DLT than just unemployment. Obviously, that's the key thing on people's concerns, and we spent a good amount of time on it. But let's talk about the work-share program. I'm not sure. A lot of small business owners know enough about it. What can you tell us, and how can people get involved?
Sure. So if you go to DLT's website, dlt.ri.gov, it's right on the bottom of the screen right now. You can find information on WorkShare. WorkShare is a program that was introduced years and years ago, really aimed at manufacturing companies, but then since then has expanded into all sorts of industries. And Rhode Island has been a national leader. Senator Jack Reed loves the WorkShare program, touts it all over the country whenever he can, and has really delivered, not only funding for the program, but really strong support over the years. And what WorkShare does is it says, if you're facing a downturn in your business, and maybe it was unpredictable, or maybe it's manufacturing, and that 1 or 2 months a year you have an issue, instead of laying people off and moving those people onto unemployment, and then you hope you can get them back when your business is back, you can put them on a program called WorkShare. And what WorkShare does is it's set up by the employer, where they go in and set up a plan, and they essentially reduce the hours of a number of employees. And it used to be you had to reduce them equally for each unit of employment. And then we worked with the business community a few years ago and changed the way it works. We went in and made some changes to the law, and it's much more flexible now. And so, if you need Matt for a particular number of hours, but David needs a different number of hours to get your work done, that's okay, as long as the employer communicates with DLT. The advantage to WorkShare is a couple of things. One, you stay connected to your employees that you've trained and you've invested in, so they don't go find another job, and then when you need to hire again, you're starting at step one. Two, it's good for them because they don't need to worry about when they're going back to work. They know they're still working, and as soon as business picks up, they'll be back full time. In the short term, they receive a partial unemployment payment and the federal bonus if there happens to be one, which is a good thing.
Yep. And
their employer is paying them based on reduced work week. It's a win-win for employers and employees, and most importantly, maybe during the pandemic, it's 100% funded by the federal government and has been for the last 14 months. It will be until September 4th, and we'll see what they do after that. Go ahead and on our website, check it out. WorkShare is a great program. I'm very happy to tout it.
No, fantastic. With that in mind, when employers are bringing on new employees right now, and maybe bring them on part time because of the insurance benefit for them, are there any assistance programs for employers with training and things of that nature that they could use?
Sure. So we have done training here at DLT in a number of formats and for a long time. We run the federal programs. The federal government funds states through what's essentially a block grant for states to train people and hopefully get them connected to employment. We've invested that money, I think, wisely over the last few years. We've moved from a plain supply side train and pray model, which is people have to fit into certain buckets. You train those people and then hope they get jobs. We've moved to investments in industries and sectors. It's a sector-based, demand-driven training model. We call the programs the REALS programs, Real Jobs Rhode Island and Real Pathways Rhode Island. And then we have a youth program, which is called Real Skills for Youth. We can work with the employers and work with industries to make sure that we're providing training. We also have programs through the Governor's Workforce Board that are much more just individual between DLT and an employer. And that would be, for instance, a work immersion program, which gives people a chance to try work out and have it partially subsidized by the state. There's a lot of information on DLT's website or the Governor's Workforce Board's website, which you can get to from DLT's site, about how to engage with those opportunities. The governor put about $3 million more in general revenue for workforce training into the budget. That means if it passes, for next year, we'll have about $8.25 million. and on top of a state tax that we already have. We're looking forward to maybe getting back up into being the reemployment agency and moving past being the unemployment agency.
No, I mean, it's great idea in the form of rebranding in that sense. I mean, and it certainly sounds like very interesting programs. And like you said, I mean, why train, with the way things constantly change, why train someone in something that, the job may be obsolete, a few years when you could, be more on top of what people really need here in the state and what jobs are out there and open. And that's fantastic. All right. Let's move on to a topic I know it's been kind of addressed to death, but I think it's still important, and people still have questions about it every now and then. Is the whole problem with fraud and what's being done, and how do you what's your feeling on it right now? Do you have a good grasp on it? Is it something that's still continuing to grow, or how's it working?
It's not growing. It's coming down week after week.
Right.
We do have a good grasp on it now. Unfortunately, this kind of fraud is really hard to prevent. It's hard to detect, but really hard to prevent. And because somebody is posing as someone else, and when you run the information through federal databases, it comes back as a match.
Right.
But then we use sophisticated cybersecurity tools. It's artificial intelligence that through machine learning, we train it every week and have trained it every week for the last 12 or 13 months. So in the beginning of the pandemic, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, any other state, no one was equipped to deal with the fraud that we were hit with. It had been, it's called imposter fraud. There had been some cases over the years, but it wasn't. Our fraud was typically people working and collecting unemployment, things like that. Much
Right.
more concrete. This is much different. Now, because of all the work that we've done, we put stops on claims. We have multi-factor authentication on the front end. So somebody has to go in and give information to get a text message or a call to verify who they are. That will prevent bots from coming in. It will prevent some fraudsters from coming in. We use reCAPTCHA, which is when you have to select the images, how many of these images have stop signs in them or something like that. We use various identification tools. The challenge, David, is you really need to be careful. The states that probably will say they did the best with the fraud situation are also states that didn't pay anybody. And so Rhode Island has been in the front of the pack from day one until now on paying people within 2 weeks of filing. We're at 90-something% of claims paid within 2 weeks. We've led the country, and we continue to do so. That's good. It's getting money right out into our economy where it needs to be.
Right.
Does that mean some fraud claims were paid in the beginning of the pandemic? It does, and we've reported on that. But we're in a much, much better place. Complete new systems, new personnel, new procedures. Everything is working much better. And going forward, this will be a regular part of what we do with unemployment, preventing and detecting this kind of fraud.
No, it sounds like on track. What you just said popped something into my head. Is there a form of essentially insurance for state unemployment insurance so that you can get back the money that you unfortunately gave out as fraud?
Yeah. So the good thing is most of the money was federal money that we gave out, and we don't have to pay it back. The feds are we're meeting this week about ways that they're going to go after that money. On the state side, yes, we do have an insurance policy through the state. It's not specific to DLT, and we are pursuing a claim, and we'll probably end up in court over that. But we'll do everything we can to try to get money back. In addition to that, the banks are being really good partners. And so banks are willing to send money back. The challenge is for all the lawyers that are participating, indemnity clauses, right? And so the banks don't want us to tell them to give us money back unless we will indemnify them against any potential, suit. And so there's a lot of lawyers thinking on how to do this the right way right now. But we are pursuing many, many avenues to get this money back for our trust fund.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, it's certainly a concern, I think, also of small business owners that their payments into the system may be going up. Do you have any sense that how that is? If it's if we've been fortunate enough to use the federal funds to maintain a level payment for everyone?
So the good thing is taxes. It's never good when taxes go up. Taxes did go up this year, but they didn't go up on an individual basis. And so what that means, there are two ways to look at this, or two things to be considered. One, we have a state tax schedule that's going to be in effect every year. That tax schedule is determined on the total payroll for the previous year and the amount of money in the trust fund as of September 30th. And then there's a statutory formula that we have to do. Again, I'm not the math guy, so don't let me do it. Somebody else does it and says, here's what the number is. And it's called your reserve ratio. Okay. How much do you have on hand if you're exposed to all these claims?
Right.
Because of our reserve ratio, because we paid out as much as we did last year, $660 million from the trust fund, we had to go up 2 schedules. We had dropped in 2015. We reformed the tax system in Rhode Island. We had been on the highest tax schedule since 92. In 2016, we dropped for the first time. We dropped again in 17 and dropped again in 19. So we went down 3 and we went back up 2. I know it's a pain. And what does it mean? It means employers on average are paying $72 more per employee per year this year than they did last year. Maybe that'll change. The good thing is we didn't have to borrow. Over 22 or 23 states are borrowing from the federal government right now. Because of that, their federal taxes for those employers are higher. And their states are going to have to introduce a special tax just to pay the interest on the loans that they have, which is what Rhode Island did last time. Because of a formula that we devised early in the pandemic, I actually created it like a madman on Easter Sunday last year in my office. And because of that, 80% of the claims have been funded by the federal government. 80%, 20% by the state. And so we've paid out $3.3 billion. Most of that the feds have covered. Because of that, we haven't borrowed. Now we're starting to see taxes come in, and our fund is healthy at about $170 million right now.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, that's certainly good relief for all our small businesses out there to know that that's going to stay that way. Let's back up just 1 second. Go back to legislature. I applaud you and the governor and everyone at the speed at which this bill moved through the legislature. I heard you the other morning on Ian Donis's show on the Public's radio, and I think you said you've been part of 20 different sessions now.
22, I think. Yeah,
that's what I was. 22, and yeah, as someone who's only been part of about a dozen, the speed at which this bill went through was impressive. In some ways, I was kind of like, well, shoot. I mean, if they can do that, maybe there's some other things we should be moving a little faster on. But obviously, this was a unique case. Are there other things that you see that the legislature could address that could assist DLT and maybe continue to move us forward, into a better future?
I mean, I have a very good working relationship with the House and the Senate, and I do applaud them for taking this as seriously as they did. They moved it quickly because it was such an urgent matter.
Right.
We had to get people back to work. We had to do it soon. It couldn't wait until the summer break.
Yeah.
And I made that case along with the governor, and they were very receptive, and they wanted to lead on this issue. So we got that done. I don't have any other immediate changes on the horizon, but if I do, you bet I'll be back up there talking to them about how important they are. And over realistically, we probably won't make any more changes right now. But over the summer, I will make myself available to talk to anybody from the business community that wants to talk about system reforms. I've been in the job permanently for a month and maybe a month or so, just a little bit more. We got to get to smoother sailing with unemployment, which we're doing. Things are getting better. But once that's the case, then I'm going to do on a listening tour. I want to hear from people about changes that they'd like to see. And that includes from workers and employers. I want to hear from both. That's been how I do business in the past. I'm going to continue to do that now that I have this job. And together, hopefully next year, we can make some more changes.
No, it's fantastic. And I think that's something we've all, just myself this morning, in putting together this program, I was like, how many times are we going to keep asking questions about COVID? And, obviously it's huge and it's important, but I'd like to get back to the point where this show is just about general business questions and addressing the needs of small businesses instead of, having to, start it all off with, where we are right now because of the pandemic. And, obviously it's huge. No one's debating that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd be great to, have you back, in a couple months to just talk about other business items and get people to send in questions that are, more general to their needs as businesses. So Ben, are there any more questions from the audience?
I don't believe so. Chris has a question. Can we cover workforce development questions, skills training?
We have information available online, and I think when the budget comes out, which should be about 3 weeks from now, we'll have a better sense of what our job training budget is for next year. And at that time, I'd be very happy to talk again about skills development. And, that we talked a lot about a skills shortage prior to the pandemic, but that started to get a lot better. Our unemployment rate was 4% or just under that. We were doing really well. And now we're just, we've been dealing with unemployment for so long that we need to get back on that track. I think we're well positioned to help out with skills training, and our programs have proven themselves. So we'll be happy to do that. And David, I did see one more question in the chat that was about general claim numbers. Are they coming down? Forget about fraud.
Oh,
The answer is yes. There was a report last week by an online group that said that Rhode Island had the highest level of claims compared to the rest of the country. That's not the case. They're looking at very specific USDOL, Employment and Training Administration data that just takes a blind picture of claims. But what it doesn't tell you is this: how many of those claims are duplicate claims because people felt like it wasn't moving fast enough? How many of them were potentially fraudulent? How many of them were what we call complex claims, meaning they had been filed a little while ago, but we are now processing all of them? And those are the ones that don't go through smoothly.
Right.
Because of that, that number for that week was like 11,000, which was higher than it was this time last year. But that's not the case. Or maybe it was this time in 2019. But that's not the case. We are going down week over week. Rhode Island, I think everyone will see, is going to be in a very strong position compared to our neighbors. Our unemployment rate is lower than Mass and Connecticut. It's right near the national average. We're doing very well in that regard. And we are not, despite what you may read, we are not seeing an influx of unemployment claims.
Well, I think it's always going to be the case of ebbs and flows to all these things. I mean, the Honeywell news last week is certainly not a good story for unemployment, but hopefully, because there's so many jobs available out there right now, that's a blip and not a problem. I think there's the peak. Obviously because the pandemic is coming down. Will we be the same as 2019? I think it's going to take some time, but we'll get there and then hopefully keep going lower from there, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, I think that's everything from the audience, and I've exhausted all the questions here. I really appreciate your time today, Matt. It's great having you here. It's great talking. Like I said, hopefully next time it'll be a little more general business and less about putting out fires and things of that nature. But you've been again a great partner to the Small Business Coalition, and you're a heck of a firefighter in the case of all this unemployment and fraud and things of that nature. So thank you very much to all you out there watching. Thank you for your questions. We'll be back again in 2 more weeks. So put that on your calendar, noon on Tuesdays. There's also noon on Tuesdays the other weeks when we're not on. The Lieutenant Governor does her forum as well, her town hall. So every Tuesday at noon, pop onto Facebook, ask questions, join us. You can find more information about the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition at rismallbusiness.org, also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of that. But rismallbusiness.org is that there's a newsletter sign up. You can sign up there. The coalition meets every other Monday at 5 p.m. We met yesterday, even though we had a holiday. Small business never sleeps. So we'll be meeting again on June 13th at 5 p.m. So if you want to join that, please check out the website, sign up for the newsletter. And thank you again to Director Weldon. We really appreciate having him here today. Thank you. Take care.